Hey there. If you're a frequent listener to our show, you already know that our show is brought to you by our friends over at Artillery Sports. But what you may not know is that Artillery Sports helps athletes of all types win on and off the course and court. They do this by selling quality, durable, and precision manufactured sports equipment that keeps you in the game, while also using a portion of the profits to provide the funding needed to care for our nation's veterans. With Artillery Sports, it's more than just a game. So head over to artillerysports.com today to buy the quality equipment you need to keep you in the game and to help our nation's veterans at the same time. That's artillerysports.com. Make sure you head on over there today. Oh, and use the code DOCFIRST to get 10% off your first order. Welcome to Documentary First, an inside look into documentary filmmaking. I'm your host, Christian Taylor, and a documentary filmmaker myself. And today I am here with Anne Easton, an entertainment lawyer and a Documentary First producer. Welcome, Anne. Very nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah, we've had you here one time before. We had an excellent podcast previously. If you have not listen to that, you absolutely should. And before we begin, why don't you give a little bit about your background and story? You've had a transition now, so tell us where you're working now and what you're heading into.
Yes, thank you. I was with Shepherd Mullen, a very big law firm that operates throughout the United States as well as in Europe, and then I think also in China. And I had been there for about 5 years, and I recently just transitioned out of the firm, and I've started my own little consulting company, which may turn into a law firm, but I like it just being consulting right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing business and legal affairs consulting as well as corporate transactions for smaller startup companies. And the consulting side is a lot easier because I just get to give advice without having to do all the paperwork.
And I have to say you're very good at that because I've used you for that myself.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I know. I was just drafting a release agreement for you.
So you are a gun for hire then. You are definitely out there ready. People can hire you, right?
Yes, they can.
Where can they find you?
Hire me. You can find me at my email. I think I gave it on our last podcast, but it's Blakemore Law is but I'm operating as Blakemore Consulting Group. And you can find me at Easton at Blakemore, BLAKEMORE-law.com.
Yeah. We'll put that in the show notes as well, so people will definitely be able to find you. All right, today we're going to discuss a legal case that's been making waves in Hollywood, the Blake Lively case. Many people may have heard of it. Some of you may not. So if you've been following the entertainment industry, you know that privacy and image rights are becoming a critical issue for celebrities. But I don't want you to think it's just for celebrities. I mean, in documentary filmmaking and in any kind of filmmaking, this needs to be front and center. Before Anne and I began recording this podcast, I asked her, can I have your permission to record this podcast and use it on our Documentary First, production podcast? I had to get her permission to do that. And as she said, she is going to draft up, a podcast agreement for people to sign so that when I have guests on, they can sign it and I'm cleared. That's a very, very important thing. And she's going to tell us why and the ins and outs of all of that. So it isn't just Hollywood, but we're going to use this Hollywood example to learn why it is important and what privacy and image rights are all about. We're going to explore this case, the legal implication, and what it means for filmmakers and all of industry professionals. So, Anne, I really appreciate you being here and try to make this really simple for us.
Of course, yeah.
A lot of people are talking about this, so yeah, it's complicated. Yes. And I really want you to make it really simple for us. So what exactly is this Blake Lively case and why is it so challenging?
Well, because it's about a lot of stuff. And the biggest headline is that it's a sexual harassment case, but it's so much more complicated than that. I think so when it came out and the New York Times published Blake Lively's lawsuit against him.
So yeah. Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. Let's tell the simple stories. Tell the story of what happened. Let's start there.
So Blake Lively is, very well known, big actress. She was in Gossip Girl for
Mostly
many
known for
years,
being married to Ryan Reynolds.
and she's married to Ryan Reynolds, who is also a very big movie star. He is the Deadpool guy, and he's part of that big franchise. I think now there's Deadpool Wolverine, which was I heard really good. I still haven't
It
seen it.
was good.
Yeah. And Justin Baldoni is he's also an actor, and I think he's just started dipping his toes into the
Mhm.
directing thing. I mean, sorry,
Not a good
Justin, if
start.
you've done a lot more. I don't really know. But but Justin also has been in the public, and I mean, I saw him years ago, or maybe not even years ago, a few years, like a year ago, where he was talking about like issues between men and women, and how men need to step up and be better for women and to support them. And he seemed like he was a big advocate for feminists, essentially. And he got this really great opportunity to produce and direct the film "It Ends with Us," which is a Colleen Hoover book that they adapted. They adapted into a film, and Blake Lively obviously was attached as a producer as well as the star of the film. And they Justin Baldoni's company, Wayfarer Studios, was the big producer. So Justin was basically the boss on set, essentially. So if you're looking at it like an employment issue, Justin Baldoni was the boss of Blake Lively, and I'm not sure. So that's kind of the background. Do you want me to get into it more, or like I can keep going?
Yeah, keep going, of course.
Okay.
This is
So
story time.
the
We can't
so what
understand the law, I think, if unless we understand
the
the
background
building
a little
blocks,
bit?
yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I had a lot of friends come to me and say, "Oh, I read the articles and stuff, and it didn't sound like Justin Baldoni did anything that was like sexual harassment." I'm like, if you look at it in the context of a workplace, it is sexual harassment, one, but that's just my quick opinion. But the biggest thing is that they gosh, I've lost my train of thought.
It's okay, you were
So
telling the story. Let's go back to,
yeah.
Justin Baldoni was the boss of
Yeah, so
Blake
yeah,
Lively.
okay, so Justin Baldoni is acting like the boss here. And a lot of stuff happened before obviously Blake Lively filed this lawsuit, and I think the whole, public saw the uh the premiere for the film "It Ends with Us," and it was all extremely awkward. You never see that where the two leads in the film don't take photographs together, and
Well,
they're not even seen together on the red carpet. So everyone knew that there was something going on.
and let's clarify this. I mean, in the beginning, there
Mhm.
there was this push and pull with their 2 production companies. So, Justin
Yes.
Baldoni had a production company, Blake Lively
Yeah.
had a production company, and
Mhm.
even before there were problems, there were discussions, I believe, about,
Yes, so that's what I was
whose
gonna get
production
to.
company was in control of the
Yeah,
script. Yeah. So,
right,
there was all of that,
right. So
and then
I,
it was given. Go on.
I mean, there's so much. I mean, because it's been so highly publicized, everybody has an opinion. Everybody is reading multiple different articles, and I guess as the lawyer, because it's a legal issue, I went to the case. I went to basically the source, essentially what the New York Times posted, and it was their complaint, their initial complaint against Justin Baldoni and his PR team. And
So Blake Lively was the one that filed the lawsuit first.
yes, she filed a lawsuit first against Justin Baldoni, and she filed in California, and then Justin Baldoni, I think on the same day, filed a you know a suit in tandem suing the New York Times in New York,
Okay.
because I think that the laws are a little bit more. I mean, more helpful to Justin Baldoni's case in New York than they are in California. And
Okay.
obviously, he's suing the New York Times. That's a New York company. Um, but the case that I read, it's about like 75 pages, and I read up to maybe like page 35, and I could see from the case that Blake Lively has a very good case. Essentially, I actually wrote down how many things were in her claim, and it's quite a bit. She has 10 different things in her claim. The first one is sexual harassment. And all of these are actually, so many of them are part of the employment law side. So the first one is sexual harassment. The second one is retaliation based on, and that's an employment issue, I guess. So I can explain what retaliation is with sexual harassment. Um, if someone files a retaliation lawsuit in California, they are filing it against their employer who's taken an adverse action against them for taking a protected action. And that protected action could be filing a complaint, like about discrimination, or which would include sexual harassment. Um, and that retaliation essentially was one of the biggest things that they were claiming, which is pretty clear based on what happened. So I'm going to get into actually what happened because I read through the actual case and the facts about it. So there were a series of different things that Justin did while he was on set that could be seen as sexual harassment, but not even sexual harassment, but also discrimination. He was discriminating against anyone that was attached to her team. Like he wasn't giving the same respect to, I think it was maybe her assistant or something, or potentially one of her other like co-producers, or even maybe just a PA, which is a production assistant. Um, and his team, I think it was Jamie Heath, who's the CEO of Wayfair Studios. He also was being rude and unkind, I guess, to different people on set. But there were small little things, and I can get into the specific things that he did. Like one of the things that they talked about was that he came into her, or Justin went into her dressing room while she was nursing her child. But then there were claims that, she had told him to come in. So those are conflicting things that we don't really know. But the the case where he said, or he was showing Blake, I guess, pictures of his wife nude, which, can you imagine if I was at a law firm and my boss, this is so uncomfortable to even be saying this, and my boss showed me a picture of his wife naked, that is sexual harassment. Like all you have to do is look at it like that. And I think it should give some sort of insight for others who are thinking about it like, oh, this is Hollywood, it's so different. It's like, actually it's not, and we're trying to make it better. I mean, if the Me Too movement taught us anything, it's that we should be protecting women on set, because it kind of was a free for all for a long time, and so many women didn't feel like they could be protected. And this is kind of, the Me Too movement kind of allowed or paved the way for Blake to make this lawsuit and make this an issue, because this is definitely not the first time something like this has happened.
Right.
And whether or not it's, seen as that big of a deal, she felt uncomfortable, and she has a legal right to file a lawsuit against, or to basically make requirements that he follow guidelines that are, in place in order to protect employees in the workplace. And when somebody retaliates against you, you can file a lawsuit against them because you're protected from filing something. I mean, it's the same case of, say if like you tell your landlord that he needs to fix something in your apartment, and then he doesn't fix anything in the apartment, and then tries to evict you or something because you decide not to pay rent or something, but it's because he hasn't fixed something for 3 months, and it has to be something like the heat or whatever. He That would be a retaliation claim as well. And
So
I'm just trying to give an example of how.
yeah, what did Justin Baldoni do to retaliate against her for saying he sexually harassed her?
He publicized a smear campaign against her.
Oh, right,
Uh,
that's right.
yeah, essentially saying, and there were so many different things, and it was pretty damaging, I think, where he said to his publicist that he wanted her to go down, and he wanted to ruin her, and that she tried to ruin him, so they're going to take her down, and they needed to be more ruthless. And honestly, I think it was they did an incredible job. Justin Baldoni's PR team did. They just,
They accomplished their mission
unfortunately,
for sure.
they accomplished the mission for sure. Because I, at one point, was thinking, oh gosh, this poor Justin guy, he's like being pushed out by this big star.
Right.
But then once I read that case. I'm really glad that she filed it,
Right.
honestly,
Right.
because I mean, the truth came out, and that's the other thing. The truth eventually always comes out.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
So there are a lot of other issues,
yes.
we started talking about, celebrity privacy rights, image rights. We started talking, and now here we are talking about sexual harassment. So when
Mhm.
you look at this case, how many different, issues arise? I mean, there are a lot of hot button issues here, right, for filmmakers and industry professionals. What kind of,
Yeah.
legal precautions should we be taking? What should we be talking about here?
Well, I mean, breach of contract, definitely the sexual harassment thing, false light, invasion of privacy, which is it's actually a constitutional, concept. It's through, freedom of speech, the First Amendment, but it's also a tort. You can file it in
What is a
civil court.
tort?
A tort, actually, it's a French word. It means a wrong, essentially,
Okay.
but it could be a civil wrong or an injury caused by somebody else. And the point of the tort is to file a lawsuit so that the person can be compensated for their damages or injuries.
Okay.
Um, and that's what a tort is. So there there's some crossover between constitutional law and tort law, and they're all within like the privacy rights. And I mean, so there's the constitutional side to defamation and false light, invasion of privacy, and then there's the tort side. Um, but they're all based on the concepts from freedom of speech, First
So
Amendment.
there's actually a lot that we can learn from this case as
Yeah,
filmmakers because, it's like a cautionary tale really of how
absolutely.
you should act on set, how
Hmm.
you should treat coworkers, what
Hmm.
you should do and not do with, public images or, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Yeah.
uh, kind of where do we go next? What do you think we should focus on, now in terms of kind of what we talk about.
Of our discussion.
Yeah,
Gosh, I mean, I think that Blake Lively's case is pretty self-explanatory in my opinion. So if you want to move towards right of privacy and defamation, we can move over to what Justin Baldoni is claiming.
sure, let's do that.
Um, and I think you also wanted to talk about image and likeness and protecting that
Yeah,
because that is what the those release agreements are that
yeah.
we're gonna
Well,
have for all your podcasts, yes.
before we move on, let's make it real clear. Um,
Okay.
I do think that there are a lot of things that we need to do as filmmakers, to make sure that our sets are, set up in a way that makes everybody feel safe.
Yeah,
And, I think it's important that we just address that up front. If you're listening to this and you are a director, you're a producer, or you're thinking about making a film, don't just think about the art that you want to make. I want you to think about the people that you're going to bring to the set. When you are about to film something and you're going into principal photography, you should think about it like you're throwing a party, really.
right. Yeah.
You're inviting everyone into your home and you are creating this event for everyone to come to. And
Mhm,
you want to create a safe environment for people to come to that's, they're going to come to work and they're going to do their job and they're going to feel like they, are treated respectfully and that,
mhm,
they can leave feeling like they've done a good job and that they have been respected and they've been treated well. And, it or like in any other workplace, it needs to be treated that way. And sometimes I think that it can become too familiar that,
mhm.
it becomes a sloppy party where we're all like just hanging out and we become so much of a family. We become too cozy and familiar and the lines get blurred. A
Absolutely, yeah.
and that happens a lot, I think, on sets because
Mhm.
you're up late and you're working nights and you get you get too cozy and you become like a family and you forget a lot of the protocols and,
Right, and I mean,
um
it can be even worse when your boss is the director, but he's also
yeah,
your co-lead, who's, your romantic interest in the film,
correct.
and in a film that's about, like, violence. and about
Yeah.
domestic abuse.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
And I think too, there's a power dynamic there, and I think if we are in a power position on a film set, or when you're putting together a film crew and you're in a film company, there is a hierarchy of power. And,
Absolutely. Yeah.
those people that have power, I think, need to be very mindful of your power and position, because usually those below you are starting out and they want to grow in the industry and they want to, one day be in your position. And so they are looking up to you. And you do need to be careful when you are, in that position of power, not to abuse that power below you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what was being claimed by Blake Lively, for
Right.
sure. Yeah.
And you think she was right.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I
And
think
not just because I'm a woman or because I like Blake Lively, which I do, and really I've always liked Ryan Reynolds. He's so funny, and that Wrexham thing is
I
so
know.
fantastic. But I liked Justin Baldoni too, and I
Yeah.
will totally admit that. But something there was, and I'm sorry to say this, and I'm like scared to even say this, which is so crazy. But there was something about him that kind of made me uneasy and almost like I didn't believe him.
Hmm.
But a lot of people do know him, and I think that I think his sister also lives in the area, and a lot of people know him and really like him and are supporting him. So I think also that when the right person is given that power as the director, they don't take advantage of that position. But I do also think that who you are in public is hopefully who you are behind closed doors also. So
Yeah.
if he's touting that he's this person who's all about supporting women and being like a feminist machine for the woman, if he's being crude and like inappropriate behind closed doors on a set just because he's in this position of power, that makes me believe that you are two-faced, that you're not the same person that
Right.
you're like showing yourself to be in public. So,
I was just thinking about, we might want to stop for a second and think about, if a listener is listening to this podcast and they are in a position where they have been on set or they're working on set now and they're feeling like their privacy has been invaded, or they're feeling like they have been treated in an inappropriate manner, what should
mhm.
they do?
Well, there should be someone who's in HR, and if it's a big studio, there's always gonna be someone like that, but go find a lawyer. There's always lawyers on
Yeah,
set.
I mean, what if it's a small indie company? Like, I never had a lawyer on set until you came along. So
Yeah.
what would people do if it's a small indie set and,
Well, that's a really great question. I think, leave leave the production. And, you could sue. You absolutely could sue for harassment or with an employment lawyer, and an employment lawyer might consider taking that type of a case if it's worth it to them. But that's part of the issue sometimes is that these smaller productions don't have as much money,
right.
and if you're going to sue somebody, the attorney's going to want to make sure that there's someone to sue and there's money available. So what may be best is for you to take an employment issue to small claims court or something, but that's not even really worth it, and it's so time consuming,
Yeah.
and a
So
lot of people don't know how to file something like that.
Yeah. So I guess the best thing to do, like you said, is leave. Like, if you are beginning to feel uncomfortable on set, or if you're feeling like something is not being handled correctly, or the set is, or the people are not, acting correctly, or you're feeling
Mhm.
like your time is being abused, then the best thing that you need to do is take care of you and take yourself out of that
Exactly.
situation for sure.
Yeah, that's
And
the
then,
best thing to do.
not work with those people again, because you're right. Like, if you are on a small set, there is not a lot of value in you spending your time and resources suing someone,
Exactly. Yeah.
if because they probably don't have the money anyway, and, you
Mhm.
know, but yeah, I'm glad
Yeah,
at
I
least
mean, you
you.
wanna be able like, so much of this industry is about your reputation, and I think that you will be able to keep your self-respect intact if you do leave that production, and I know that it's so hard to make that kind of a decision, especially when, you're starting out in your career and this is the only job that potentially you have. But I'm a firm believer that karma is a real thing. And these people will find, if they're being rude to you, or they're acting inappropriately on set, I believe that it will come back to them at some point.
Yeah.
And if it's not you, it will be somebody else.
Okay, so let's talk, kind of some nuts and bolts here. What are the things that could have been put in place in this case to have prevented what happened?
Well, that's what Blake Lively did, essentially. So there are rules that you're supposed to follow on set to protect everybody, and you're supposed to act appropriately. But what Blake Lively did is they were shooting for a while, I think probably like a few months, and then all these inappropriate things happened that made her feel very uncomfortable and disrespected in multiple different ways. And when they came back after their hiatus, uh, she had put together a whole list of things that she needed the Wayfarer team to approve of. And I think it was Sony was the production or the studio on this, and Sony also approved of it. Um, and forgive me if it wasn't Sony. I really do think it was. But the and it was very normal what she was asking for. She was saying, if there's a discussion about XYZ, on set, I want to be a part of this. I do not want me or my team to be taken out of it. If there's a wardrobe change, I want to be a part of that discussion. If there's she literally spelled out, I do not want to see any more naked photographs from the director or anyone on his team. Uh,
And she asked
he's
for an intimacy coordinator too, because I didn't think they had
Yes,
one of those, which seems like
exactly.
if you're going to have an intimate scenes, it seems like it would be a very logical thing to ask for. It should have been there already.
Yes, exactly. So when that happened, they agreed to it, and Justin's team and Wayfarer agreed to all these things, and they finished production respectfully. But I think part of the deal was that probably that was handled between their PR people behind closed doors, but they wouldn't appear together, and because they were also required by contract, and I think with Sony, in order to, or they had to do a big marketing campaign, and marketing campaigns include going to the premiere. And I think that Blake was, and I mean, I guess the rest of the team was not comfortable being seen with him in public, and so they did all of the photographs, all of the press was separate from Justin and his team. And I think even at the premiere, she didn't want him to be on the red carpet at the same time as him, which is unheard of in a film where the director wouldn't be taking photos with the lead as well as one of the bigger producers. Um, so
Something happened too.
yeah.
Didn't it seem like I mean, what I remember reading was like something like her production company up in the end taking more of the edit over and it becoming
Oh
more
yeah. Yeah.
like
That was another
her
thing. Yeah.
production in the end. Her company ended up editing it to her way of seeing the film. And so they
Right.
ended up in charge of it anyway.
Yeah. So they used her edit, I guess. I think that's what was ultimately used, as opposed to his edit. She actually hired her own editor.
Right. And it was
Yeah,
better anyway, I think.
I think so too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I didn't see it, but I mean, I think the reporting was that in the end, their edit was the better edit anyway.
Right. Well, we don't know though. I mean, I
Well,
don't
that's
get to
true.
make that decision,
We
but
don't.
the other people, the
Yeah.
people who are better at this get to
Yeah.
make that decision. But yeah, that was another big part of it too. So, I mean, there are so many things that are included in this case, and
Yeah,
for
so, like,
your
what
list,
else should have been put in place? Like, I mean, she did put some things in place. She came back
she did,
at
yeah.
the hiatus and she put those in place, but is there anything else that,
Well, so
um
I think what Blake did was incredible. She kept her mouth shut. She had specific requests and made sure that they were all followed. She's in a really great position as a giant star. So she was able to say, I don't want to be in the same room with this person. He makes me feel like uncomfortable. So she was able to do that. But the public was starting to speculate. And
well
And they also started speculating because Justin's team really
Right.
didn't like that he also, so this is another thing. He anticipated that Blake and her team were going to make a smear campaign against him, which is not what she was doing. She didn't do any of that. She filed a lawsuit before any of that kind of stuff happened. And I think that that was a very wise decision because what Justin did actually allowed them to add more stuff to the to her filing.
But
And
what I
it
was
made it
gonna
much worse for him.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what I wanna ask you is, now you have this smear campaign against her, right?
Yeah. That
And
was orchestrated by someone that he hired.
right?
Yeah.
And it's all out there.
Yeah.
All these things that were said about her are out there. I mean,
Mhm.
and it got huge, and she
Mhm.
has absolutely no control over that. Like,
No.
what are some of the things that were out there? D Are they listed? Did she list them off in the complaint?
Um, the things that were said about her?
Yeah, or the things that they
Uh,
did?
yes, yeah, there's a lot. There's, I mean, emails and text messages, between, um, Justin and his publicity team, his PR team, which are not good. Not
But I
good for
mean,
the PR
they
team.
were I saw Instagram things about her, there were images, right? There were
Yeah,
lots of things that they actually put out that she had no control over, right?
correct,
So what
correct.
kind of rights does she have when they're doing all this stuff about her? Is
Uh,
that all allowed?
well, all of that, no, no, because it's part of the retaliation, like, they're saying, and it's they basically set up a lawsuit for Blake to file.
Yeah,
They added every single element of a claim for retaliation, for Blake to file. It made it so easy, and I mean, one of the other things that she filed was, for false light, which
what
an
is that?
invasion of privacy. I'm actually gonna bring up exactly what it is so I don't say the wrong thing, but, because I studied this years ago. Um, but it's when someone's portrayed in a way that is both false and highly offensive, and I mean, it can cause certain things, which is, used in tort law. It's, causing emotional distress or some other harm, and this can happen even if some of the statements are true, but you have to prove that the statements are false or misleading, and obviously that they're highly offensive and that they were publicized. And then you have to prove the plaintiff, which would be Blake Lively in this case, would have to prove that Justin was at fault as well. But there's what I found interesting, and I had forgotten from the bar exam, but I know that I do work with defamation stuff, but not as much because I'm working mostly in contracts. And I deal more with, like, image and likeness issues, but false light and defamation both focus on a harm to someone's reputation, but with false light, it's focusing more on the portrayal of the person, that in the false light, whereas defamation focuses more on false statements that damage a person's reputation.
I see.
Yeah, but both of them, when the person is a public figure, they have a heightened level of scrutiny, where I think it was some court case. It was a New York Times case, New York Times versus Sullivan, I think. Um, they basically brought about the standard for public figures having to prove actual malice, essentially, which means that the person had reckless disregard for the truth, essentially. So I think that that's exactly what Justin's team did. It was reckless disregard for the truth.
Well, so are there different laws for are there like privacy laws for celebrities? Are there certain laws like for public figures that are different for just regular everyday, citizens?
Yeah. So yes, that's what I kind of just explained.
But is it
Uh,
more than just that one? Like there was one, or is there like a whole host of them?
yeah, like your image rights are a big one, which is your right of publicity. And when you're a public figure, like a celebrity, you it, you get to have, or not get to, but you have a, a heightened amount of rights, I guess, in the sense that uh, you get to, I mean, your person, everything about you is marketable and it's in commerce essentially. And if somebody uses a photograph of you, to endorse a product, they're making money off of your face and your celebrity status and your public figure status, and
Or even your
you,
name.
or even your name, and you
Yeah.
get to, or you could file a suit against them for appropriation
What
of
about
your image.
privacy law? Do celebrities have some sort of like I don't know. They're public celebrities, but do
Yeah.
they have any inherent right to privacy even though they are like public celebrities?
Um, yes. Yes, but that's the thing that I was explaining is the actual malice thing. They have more heightened levels of, I guess, claims. If they have a claim against somebody for their invasion of privacy, they have to prove an additional element of their claim that other people don't have to prove.
I see. I see it. So I was thinking it's in the reverse. So what you're saying is like it would be easier for me to say
Mhm.
this person invaded my privacy than it
Mhm.
would be for a celebrity to say that because a celebrity is out there already and they've put
Correct.
themselves out there and we already know that they're famous. So they have to show an
Right.
additional level of why it invaded them. That makes it really hard for them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, you said, like, your focus was in image rights and, before earlier, and that you focused a lot on
Yeah.
that. So let's talk a little bit about that. Why
Okay.
is that so important? Why do we need to focus on that? What should we know?
Well, I guess your image rights are, uh, I mean, you get to protect them in anything that you do, essentially. And if somebody takes your image and, like, say they take a picture of you, and they decide that they want to use it on, a picture of somebody selling guns or something, and you are very much, against the Second Amendment, and you don't want to be associated with that at all. That would be your image and likeness, right, essentially being appropriated. And we like to put that in agreements in general where you release those rights, especially with regard to a podcast where we are being filmed. I mean, I literally just wrote this in one of the release agreements that I'm going to be signing for this podcast we're doing right now. However, something I added, which I we won't add for everybody, but I added for myself, is that I get to approve my image
Mm,
and I get to approve my likeness, and I get to approve my biography, essentially, whatever but I already approved my biography to you. So, but a lot of people don't know that if you're entering into a contract in entertainment, you can ask for that. I mean, they'll say, "Oh, we're going to give you, you know, you can give the production company or studio the right to use your image, in perpetuity for the purpose of distributing their film." But you can also add in there that you want to be able to approve the picture that they're using of you or whatever your likeness would be. So, I mean, say, Christian, I really don't like the way I look on this, but I think I look fine. So it's okay. I could claim that I get to approve this and we have to reshoot because I don't like this.
mhm.
So
Yeah. I mean,
that's
I've
one way that
actually
you protect
that's
yourself.
actually happened. I've actually had a podcast with I mean, actually, I have yet, and I can't believe this. I've been doing this podcast for 6 years, and until I hired a lawyer on my team, no one ever asked me, did I have a podcast, legal agreement? So, I've done this so long and had so many interviews that I've never had one. But anyway, I actually had a podcast guest who at the end of the podcast didn't feel good about it and said, I want to, I don't want that published.
Right.
And I thought it was great. And I was like, why don't you just watch it? Give
Mhm,
yourself a little time, just watch it. And I will give you full
mhm.
editorial rights. You can cut it up however you want. And I want you to feel good about it. I mean, I'm not here wanting people to look terrible, of course. I want them to feel good about what they're
Right, of
saying and how they
course.
look. But,
Yeah.
it is really important that people have control over that, I feel, in this industry. So you
Mhm.
should be able to say, if, in those rights things that, I wanna, I wanna have control over that, how I look and how I'm perceived.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
we
Yeah,
have
and I mean,
control.
it's to be honest, it's not a hard ask. It's not a big
It's
deal to
not an
ask for that.
unreasonable ask.
And it's usually
No.
given, yeah. And, usually what when I represent studios, what we would also add in there is that we give you a reasonable time frame in order to approve a certain amount of pictures, if it's pictures or stills or something. And if you don't respond within X amount of time, then those pictures are deemed approved, essentially. So
Yeah.
that's a
Good.
way to protect the production company or studio as well.
Right, and so in order for those, rights to be secured, it really
Mhm.
does mean you need a document, and
Yes.
so, usually the production company provides those documents, or I do think that an individual can come if the production company doesn't have it and say, "I have my own document, and I
Yeah.
would like you to sign this document." So, if
Yeah.
you're a savvy person and your image is going to be filmed, you can always have your whip out your little image rights document.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very well could.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, do you think there's anything else we really should know or what we should learn from this case? What is this cautionary tale? What can we walk away from this cautionary tale learning?
Um, I would take this as do exactly what Blake Lively did,
Which is? How would you
which
describe what
was,
she did?
um, if you feel as if you've been if I mean, she was lucky 'cause she was on a big, large film that had a lot of money. They had HR, they had a big studio, they had a lot of different protections in place, and it was more like a traditional employment, environment. But she felt uncomfortable. She filed a sexual harassment, issue, I guess, internally first, and then set up a bunch of different guidelines that she required to be implemented on set so she could feel more comfortable. And then didn't say anything publicly negative about him until he started basically thrashing her in the public. And then she didn't say anything and then filed the lawsuit. And she still hasn't really said anything, which she's has so much class, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is very classy.
Mhm,
So, what we can take away from that is, when things are being done to you that are inappropriate, you know,
mhm.
when they go low, we go high, basically. When
Exactly.
people are treating you poorly, it's really
Mhm.
important to respond in the appropriate way. So
Absolutely.
she did not respond in kind. She did what was the right thing to do and
Yeah.
handled things in a wise way. It wasn't a good way or an easy way, and,
Mhm.
she's probably gonna be tied up in court and dealing with this for a very long time, right? I mean, that's what's terrible. I mean, she had to make a really tough decision. Where are they in the legal process right now?
Well, I think they've closed everything up. The judge, I think his name's Judge Lehman or something, he has said that they can't talk about anything in the public anymore, and rightfully so, because if they have a jury trial, the whole jury pool will be tainted because it's everywhere. Everybody knows about this case. Um, and no one will be able to be unbiased. Everyone will have an opinion already when they walk into that jury box. But I think right now the New York Times has, filed a motion to dismiss. I think that they filed that at the end of February, so I'm not sure if,
Well,
that's
and
been
remind
approved
me how
yet.
the New York Times got involved in this?
They published, Blake Lively's complaint and wrote an article about it. Yeah,
Okay. And
and,
why did they do that?
because it's a good story.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were well within their rights in order to do that. A complaint is a public document.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so that's what made him mad. He's like, "Why are
yeah,
they airing my dirty laundry," kinda thing? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
but they moved to dismiss because I think they were well within their rights in order to do that. He filed a claim of invasion of privacy, false light against the New York Times.
So he has a case against the New York Times that's still ongoing.
And he also has one against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds.
And what is that one? What's he suing them for?
I think the same thing,
Yeah.
defamation. Yeah.
So Blake Lively sued him. He sued the New York Times. He sued both of them individually. That's
Mhm,
at
and
least
then
four,
yeah, and then he countersued in California against Blake and Ryan as
five,
well.
six. Okay.
I think
Yeah,
it's
that's
yeah,
crazy. And
yeah,
so then the judge basically said that nobody could talk about any of those things
in public
in
anymore, no.
public. And so now my guess is in each one of those cases, they
Mhm.
will continue through the legal system, which is they go to trial.
They
There's a
probably will
jury.
go to trial, yeah,
Yeah. And then they can
unless
be,
somebody settles, but
unless they settle, yeah. Then they can be appealed. Then, I
Mhm.
mean, it's crazy.
Well, no, if they settle, it wouldn't be appealed. That's a
No, no.
settlement. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But if it's not settled,
right.
it can be
So, yeah, no
appealed.
matter so say it does go to trial, which I can't imagine they want it to get to trial, but if it does go to trial and say Justin doesn't like what happens, and I'm saying that because I think that Blake has the right or the best case, then he can appeal, which I'm sure he will.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Really just goes to show you really should just behave. If
I
people would just behave, it would
they
save
would just behave
everybody a lot of time and a lot of money. Just
exactly,
behave.
and, I also wanna make a disclaimer, like, I think it's possible that Justin's a nice guy, he just made a lot of bad decisions in
Yeah,
this
probably true.
scenario. Yeah.
And then he doubled down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what people do when they feel threatened, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, man. All right.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you
Mm.
for these wonderful, lawyerly like insights and
Yeah,
for
you're
explaining
welcome.
this case to us. And we really appreciate you being on our team. And we know that now we know that legal things are really important, whether it's on a podcast, on a film set, even personally. I mean, just understanding your rights. A lot of times people don't understand this, but whenever you walk into a game, like a basketball game or a hockey game or whatever, you are all of a sudden giving away your right to be filmed.
Oh, yeah.
And
Mhm.
there are signs probably around that says if you walk into this building, you are, giving away your right to be filmed because they have to do that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so you got to know that you own those rights and you have the right to give them away or you have the right to keep them. And
Right.
yeah, you're in
Yeah,
control of those. So
exactly. Yes. And
mhm.
I'm really proud of myself because on this one, I didn't say ensure
Not
9 times.
once,
Yeah,
not
I don't think
once.
I said it maybe once, maybe once.
Oh. Yes, I think it's
Yeah,
hilarious that you went to the
so
other
funny.
episode and counted how many times you said "ensure."
I didn't, a friend of mine did. He tallied it up and sent me a picture. Yeah.
That is hilarious.
I know, yeah. I
I'm
think
so
I've
proud
heard
of you.
myself say "absolutely" a little too much, so, maybe that's gonna be the word for this one.
I certainly wouldn't wanna count how many times I said a word because I'm sure I said the same thing over and over and over,
I
especially
is it
welcome to documentary first or bye everybody.
yeah. Oh,
Hey
and my one
yes.
last thing I'll say,
Mhm.
obviously, this is not I don't represent anyone who's listening. This is just my understanding of the law, and I'm not giving legal advice here. I only represent Christian.
Yes, you do. And by
Yes.
the way, however, they can hire you to
Yes.
represent them, or they can
Yes.
hire you to consult with them, or you are a
Yeah.
free bird right now and you are
Yeah.
a gun for hire. So,
Mhm.
and I highly recommend you. So,
Thank you.
that is amazing. Now, I forgot to ask you, have you seen any documentaries recently?
Oh, no, not since we last chatted. I've been
Yeah.
busy. I was in Montana for about 3 weeks, which I think, explains my little outfit here.
Yeah.
I was in Montana for 3 weeks, and I was skiing and working on my new consulting business, as well as writing.
That's
So
wonderful.
I have not watched a documentary in the last month. Yeah.
Well, you are writing a true story, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. Do you mind? Can you?
No, not at all.
Talk
I'm
about this
writing a
documentary story.
yes, it is kind of like that.
Mhm.
I'm writing a book about a young woman who, in her, I guess she's not that young, in her late 20s, she moves to Saudi Arabia with her husband. And while she was there, she wrote a series of letters back home to her mother, just explaining her experience in Saudi. And I kind of oscillate between her time in Saudi and her as she grows up from the age of 5 onward, and then the two time periods converge at one point. Um, and it's been a really incredible journey doing that. And it's been even more cathartic, I think. It's cathartic to write a book anyway, but it's more cathartic because it's about my mother. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And do you have both sides of the letters? Do you have hers and your grandmother's?
I don't have the
Oh,
returns. No, I
man.
know, but I kind of like it that way.
Do you?
I do, yeah. And the way that I'm interweaving it, I think it works.
Okay. And
But
have
I
you
do have some
traveled?
I do have some stuff about my grandmother and what she was going through at that time.
Okay. And have you traveled to these exotic places yet?
I haven't. I've been to a lot of the places, with her upbringing, but I really wanna go to Alaska. My mom was born there, and I wrote something really cool about Alaska. She was born in Ketchikan,
Mhm.
and gosh, the native, tribes that were there are so incredible, and they're really revered in that area. So I really wanna go to Alaska, and I have plans to go to Saudi in the fall because it's getting too close to
Mm,
summer, and I don't have the time right now to go. So I'm gonna go in the fall, and I think that the Red Sea Festival is actually in the fall as
that's
well.
cool. That's
So I'll get
awesome.
to go then, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I
Mhm.
actually just signed up for a cruise to Alaska and I'm going to catch a can. So if you want to go with
Amazing.
me in 2026,
Wow.
July, you can join
Oh
the
my
join the fun.
goodness. I might actually do that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing cruise. I'll
yeah.
send you the deets.
Awesome.
Well, that sounds so exciting. We're gonna have to follow your journey with this book because I know it's gonna be amazing and I can't wait to read it. And maybe
Thank
one day
you.
we can turn it into a documentary film. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes, or even
You-
a feature that
yeah, you
hopefully
could
doesn't
play
have
it.
any of the issues that they had in With It Ends With Us.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
You could play the lead maybe. It would be amazing.
I think my mom was 27 at
You
that
look
time. I'm a
27.
little too old. No, oh, do I? Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm
Listen,
so close to 27, yeah.
when you were in Montana, didn't you go do anything interesting or fun, or didn't you go see some stuff? Didn't you
Um,
go, like,
did I go see some
touristy, do
stuff?
anything touristy? Like, anything
Well,
interesting? Like
I mean, I do a lot of fun stuff whenever I'm in Montana, but,
yeah, didn't your
this
friend
last time
send you to
this last time
this
it was my friend's birthday, and she had a big party at this, really cool hat shop that's called Kemosabe, and, it's very well known. They started in Colorado in Aspen, and these wonderful people threw, her a birthday party at the hat shop, and we bought hats, we bought boots. Um, it's a really
that's
cool
that's
shop, yeah.
super amazing, but that is not what I'm talking about, Anne.
Oh, what is it that you're talking about? Am I forgetting
Where
something?
did you go? Yes.
I was in
Where did
Whitefish.
I send you? You were also in
Oh,
Folsom?
oh, the museum. Sorry, oh my gosh, yeah, so
Yeah.
I went to Missoula. I'm so sorry. I went to Missoula, and on my way back from Missoula to Whitefish, I, stopped at, like, there's this place in Flathead Lake called the
Nope.
Magical Museum? No?
Nope.
What is it called?
Miracle of America
The
Museum.
Miracle the Miracle of America Museum, where I walked inside, and there it was, a big poster of the girl who wore freedom, and,
Yes.
your good friend, I think what was his name?
What
Uh,
is his name?
anyway, so the
I'll think of it.
director of the
Yeah.
museum, he
Yes.
wasn't there, so I did leave my name, but what a cool museum. Oh my
I
goodness.
mean, fascinating, right? Like, I've talked
Yes,
about the Miracle of America Museum, like, long ago, and I only found out about it because we were in the Flathead Lake, International Film Festival twice with
right.
The Girl Who Wore Freedom and Grueling Glory, of which we won both, by the way.
Mhm.
And it was, then when I think they came to the film festival, and that's how I learned about it, and so I went to visit it, and it is this this husband and wife team. It's mostly the husband who is, I think he's basically probably a hoarder, but he loves
I
America
mean,
and he wants
yeah,
and he
it
just
kinda
has
looks
all
like
this, yeah, he has all this property and all these outbuildings. And so he just
mhm,
collects it all and puts it all in this place. And
yeah,
even then he has more than he can handle, but he has just
yeah,
so much stuff. And then he's an incredible
mhm.
metal worker. Did you see all the stuff he made?
Oh, yeah, a
All of that
ton of
metal
stuff.
stuff he
I mean,
made.
yeah, and they were telling me that it
Spaceships
would
and
probably take me
robots
at
and
least, yeah, they said it was gonna take at least 2 days to get through it, and on the sign outside, it actually says the Smithsonian of the West.
does it really doesn't surprise
Yeah,
me at
uh-huh,
all. Did you see
right.
the beauty shop? Did you go see the beauty shop?
I didn't, no, 'cause I had to head out, I was heading up to Pilates up in
Oh,
Whitefish.
oh my goodness.
I had
I could not leave that place. Like, for me, it
I
was
know, it was
fascinating.
hard,
There's a
it was
schoolhouse in there where that's, like, set up, it's like one of the early American schoolhouses, and you go in there, and it's like it's
wow,
exactly like it would have been, like, on the prairie, and so it's got the rules, there, and it's got the desks and the chairs and the books, and, I mean, you feel like you're walking into a schoolhouse that was on the prairie, and I
oh
don't
my
know how he found all this stuff, but it's just remarkable. And in the beauty
god,
house, the stuff in there, he's collected over time from beauty shops that go back to I don't know when, the caveman age. But you look
mhm,
at these things and they look like a torture chamber. Like it really does. Like you're like, that
yeah,
was how you curled their hair. That's how you dry. But when you think about it, I guess today, if you look at the implements that we use as well, they could be thought of, as torture weapons. But back then, I
right,
mean, there's this one thing that looks like a coffin. It looks like a
mhm.
coffin that this woman slept in, and she only had her neck out of it. I don't even know what that was for.
Oh my
Crazy,
god. I
crazy
did
stuff.
not see that, did not see that stuff. But that's what I
Well,
really do wanna go back in the summer 'cause I Montana is, like, my happy place, so
it's pretty
I'm
great.
going back in July, yeah,
I recommend Flathead Lake for sure. What do you recommend?
yes. I I'm gonna say Flathead Lake too because I don't want too many people in Whitefish.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah,
Oh, and so nice to have you here. Thanks for coming back. We will have you back to talk about more legal things. Maybe bring another case and we'll dissect that and figure out how that can be applied, what lessons we need to learn. Maybe that'll be the next
yeah,
episode. But
for
thank
sure.
you so much for being here. Everybody, we really appreciate you listening to Documentary First. It's really great to have an audience that cares about documentary filmmaking, about learning, and we want to learn more about you. So if you are listening to this podcast and you haven't interacted with us at all, please do. We have a website where you can leave comments. You can reach us on Instagram. You can message us on X. You can message us on Facebook. Really, you can email me at christian@documentaryfirst.com. I want to know that you're listening and I want to know what you think. What do you want to know? Ask us questions. We can even have some guests back on and ask them questions. If you have a question for Anne, write us and we'll have her back on and have her answer the questions. So we want to know who you are and what you want to know. So please interact with us some way. We have a Patreon too. You can join us at patreon.com/documentary first. We'd love to have you. We're doing a lot of extra content over there. So please join us over there. And we are going to be doing some new fun things here at the podcast. So do keep listening. It's going to be exciting what we've been talking about behind the scenes. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much for listening to Documentary First, where we believe everybody has a story to tell, and you can be the one to tell it. Bye, everybody.